Archibalds, two Archibalds, and an Alan Archibald on the fourth.
Hello and welcome to Draw, Lose or Draw. This is episode 2 of our 12 Days of Archie series, and today we're going to look back on a game from 2015 where we picked up a 2-0 win at Tannadice. This game came at a time when the team were low in confidence. They were in the middle of an atrocious run, as David Forrest explains.
Before this game, we hadn't won in 5 games. After beating Hamilton 5-0 on the 21st of January, we then went on to draw 2 each with Kilmarnock at Rugby Park before losing to St Mirren 1-0 at Firhill, Celtic 3-0 at Firhill, Dundee away was 1-0, and then losing to Ross County at Firhill 3-1, meaning we hadn't won a game for 38 days before this game happened. So a pretty wretched run, to be honest, but one that had kind of been replicated throughout the season up to that point. We had a really, really poor start of the season. After winning the opening game against Ross County, we then went several weeks without a win. We pick up wins here and there, but we'd only won 6 by the time we got to this game against Dundee United. So we were on a really, really bad run at that point. Certainly our worst of the season and our worst for probably quite a while, to be fair.
The Thistle faithful were left in shock as the team scored an incredible first goal, one of the greatest team goals you'll see from a Thistle 11.
The Barca Style goal, that's what it was dubbed as when he scored it.
It's very tiki-taka, isn't it?
Aye, very tiki-taka.
The goal was kicked off by Gallagher rolling it out to Higginbotham, who finds himself back at the right back position, who plays it up the line to O'Donnell. And then basically Lyle Taylor does a lovely little kind of back heel flick, and then O'Donnell turns, lets it roll, and then puts it away in the far corner.
Yeah, what a goal that was, man. That was probably the best team goal that we've scored in years. That was just a fantastic goal. Obviously, it started from the keeper, rolled it out. I think Higgy then knocked it up the pitch. Lyle Taylor got onto it, and then back-heeled it, O'Donnell with a wee dummy and then sticking it into the top corner. I mean, what a goal that was.
Here are some of our fans' finest memories of Stephen O'Donnell in a Thistle shirt.
Stephen O'Donnell was a fantastic player for us. Going forward, he was brilliant. He chips in with assists and goals. As I said earlier, we really do miss a goal-scoring defender. I mean, we usually have always had one. We had Lindsay, had O'Donnell, Ballatone. We've always had players that pop up with goals in defence. We haven't really had that for years now, and I think it is something we do really lack.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen O'Donnell's got an interesting one, isn't he? Because his career's kind of like catapulted since then, but he was always like he's sort of it's a weird one because he was always a really good player for us, but you never thought he's going to be a Scotland international that takes us to the Euros, would you? So so he's an interesting one to talk about. Yeah,
looking at his career post Thistle, going to Kilmarnock and doing really well there to the point where he gets a Scotland call-up. I understand, obviously, Steve Clarke's a manager and stuff like that, but, you get called up on merit, especially if you're a Kilmarnock player, irrespective if you're a manager as the ex-Kilmarnock manager. Like, they've got to see something and see, you contributing to the point where it's obviously a different level, and the fact that he's went and he's seen, Stephen O'Donnell, yeah, he would, that's the person I need for the squad. It's is testament to his abilities, and he's a great miss for ourselves.
I just remember watching him in the 2 seasons we had him in the Premiership. It was like, this guy's going to play for Scotland. And I remember I wanted him in the team for the Gibraltar game at Hampden. And I was like, why no? Because it's fucking Gibraltar.
It wasn't just the fans quick to sing Stephen O'Donnell's name. Players such as Stevie Lawless, who we spoke to earlier in the year, were also quick to heap praise on the attacking fullback.
I love playing with Sod. I think we were perfect together because I like to come inside. I preferred playing on the right. I still do. It's ideal having a right back that's going to overlap you and it kind of gives you a bit more space. So I really enjoyed playing with Sod. But there was obviously a lot of good players we had there at the time. Banzo was obviously brilliant. Bills, Squiddy, some great players. Higgy was unplayable at some points as well. So there's a lot of players I enjoyed playing with. But the first one I think I had the best relationship on the park with would have been Sod.
This game came a couple of years into Alan Archibald's tenure, but a couple of our fans, Marc Wallace and James Cairney, talk about how you could see the influence of Jackie McNamara still on this Thistle team.
Stephen O'Donnell one of my favourite ever Thistle players. Like, there was always, like, I remember when you could tell McNamara was massive in his development, because obviously McNamara was the same kind of player, sort of an attacking fullback.
Yeah, I mean that was just that really exemplified. I mean, trust that's probably, I know this is a couple of years later, but that goal sort of had, I always thought the attacking play of that Thistle team always sort of had Jackie McNamara's fingerprints all over it. I always kind of felt that maybe that's unfair to Archie, but I always felt that, maybe it's just because Archie was defender. I always felt that he always excelled at the defence side of the game, but I always thought that the best football that I've seen Thistle play was played under Jackie McNamara, this really sort of free-flowing attacking stuff. And I think that even though he obviously left back at the start of 2013, there's a lot of the same group of players that had worked under him, and there's a lot of the same guys that had ran those drills and they learned how to attack with each other. And I think that, I know there are some fans that really don't like Jackie McNamara, but I get why, I understand it. But I do think that even though he had left all that time ago, but I think there was still certain sort of tactical sort of hangovers from his spell in charge that we still benefited from for years to come, because under Archie, I mean, I think we saw it particularly in the year we went down, where we had, things didn't really work out for us. We had bad luck, injuries, blah blah blah. But the main problem was we were really just lackluster in attack. I think that's been a big problem at Thistle. I mean, obviously we're talking about the Hamilton game a minute ago. We're on 5-0. Like, we very rarely batter a team, or at least win comfortably. When's the last time we even won by more than 3 goals a league game? Like,
it's been 5 years.
5
This
years.
is a stat that's been it's been haunting us. We talked this in the podcast before about how we haven't won a game by 5 goals since the Kilmarnock game that we'll speak about later. But yeah, that we've not won a game by for at least 5 years, and it's just a case of, you're absolutely right. We don't batter teams anymore, and I know you obviously say it's a bit unfair to Archie. I would be inclined to agree with you in the sense that obviously McNamara's DNA is very much in that team, but you have to look at the sort of situation as how it came about. That team was moulded by McNamara, then he left, and Archie was the person who had to pick it up mid-season. So of course he's just going to run with what McNamara was doing, because obviously he'd been working under him as a reserves manager. He changed with him in the change room and all that, and like that, he absolutely would have taken on a lot, because if you're a player going into your first coaching job and you obviously don't have any experience, you look at the people around you, you look at your sort of your peers, and the manager McNamara at the time, you're absolutely looking at that sort of at that manager and looking at what he's doing, seeing how well it's doing, and replicating that. So I know I definitely think that's definitely a fair point to make, that definitely McNamara, he sort of sowed the seeds for that and then actually worked on with it, but you can't discount the influence that McNamara had on that team even a couple of years later.
Yeah, no, I think that's very well put. Then again, sorry, I do feel bad. I feel as if I'm taking it away from Archie a bit. But I mean, I think the thing. So I spoke to Archie at the start of the year, just sort of about his career at Thistle, and the impression I got from him when we were talked about, replacing Jackie and then, sort of trying to make the team his own, was that certainly the remainder of that season, he sort of felt he was in a lose-lose situation, and that, he'd either be the guy that came in and chucked the league, and then, the fans would never forgive him, or he'd win the league and then people would just give all the success to Jackie McNamara, like I've just done. So, I think that he himself was really quite nervy at the time. I think he really quite felt the pressure of it. Certainly that's the impression that I got. But also at the same time, he absolutely loves Partick Thistle. He bleeds red and yellow, and I always get the impression of Archie that if he can help Thistle, he will. I think that's part of the reason he came back and all that as well. Like, I just think that, yeah, like you say, Archie obviously deserves the lion's share of the credit for that team, because it was his team. Obviously, he's spent a far longer time in charge than Jackie did. But yeah, I do think that while he's not the most popular guy around for Hill at times, Jackie McNamara was important, because he's the guy that really sort of kicked off the revival.
After such a sensational first goal, it was only fitting that Thistle's second came from a comedic own goal from Dundee United.
We didn't have to wait long for the second goal in the game, as Higginbotham curled in a corner kick. He slipped as he took it, and Franz challenged in the air. We got a bit of a lucky break as it hit off the heel of McGowan and bounced into the net. A bit of luck for Thistle, which we've been lacking that season.
I definitely say this game certainly shows the duality of sort of Thistle in a way, certainly in terms of what it's like to be a Thistle fan, because you have that incredible Barca Style goal, and then the second one, you know, the guy who put the corner in slipped in his arse and it accidentally hit off somebody's heel to go in. It's two very Thistle goals, both in very disparate ways, I think. And with that, like, definitely, like, it feels like it's sort of the yin and yang of like Thistle goals. It's either an amazing quality skill or somebody falling on their arse and it getting tapped in off somebody's heel, definitely.
But I think we were at I think I was on my way to Clydebank or something, and then like we had Clyde Super Scoreboard on, and it was like goal flash come in, and it was like it's a goal at Tannadice. I was like, oh, the Dundee United have went 1-0 up, and then we went one. It was us that went 1-0 up. I was like, oh, that's brilliant. They're fucking going mental in the car, and then goal flash come up again. Oh, another goal at Tannadice. I was like, oh fuck, they've equalised, haven't they? And then we get the second, and then I heard it was Callum Higginbotham, and I was like, "Ah, he's back. That's him back to his best." And I thought it was a fucking deflection. It wasn't even his goal. But that was the beginning of when we started, because Dundee United gave us a fucking stinking for years, didn't they? For like years. This was the beginning of when we actually started beating them and getting results against them. Like any game against Dundee United, you beat them was a fucking positive. So especially beating them at Tannadice is brilliant.
David Forrest and Rhys Jenkins now talk about how important a 3 points this was in our bid to secure survival that season.
That game turned out to be a bit of a turning point in that season. So we'd before that game we'd only won 6 games the whole season, and then from the 28th of February onwards we went and lost to Ross County after it, but then after that we went 3 unbeaten, then we lost to Celtic, which is a bit of a throwaway, a gimme, then we went and won 3, and then drew 1, lost 1, drew 1. So we were basically, after that game we only lost twice to teams that weren't Celtic. I mean, that's pretty respectable considering when you look back at the start of the season there were a lot of red there. We went on to record 6 wins to keep us up, and we eventually finished in 8th position with 38 points. A good 7 points clear of Motherwell in the playoff position.
If you look at it, we won as many games from the 28th of February onwards, from this game onwards, as we did from the entire season before the 28th of February, because we won 6 up until this game, and then won 6 after that in the space of, 3 months. I think you definitely could call this a turning point in the season.
No, but again, that goal was, I think that's, whenever you feel it's shite, that is like the emergency. Like, break the glass. That's the one you go on to watch, innit?
This episode of the 12 Days of Archie was narrated by Matt Greer and edited by David Forrest, with contributions from David Forrest, Marc Wallace, Stevie Lawless, Kieran Ashton, Rhys Jenkins, Jamie McDonald and James Cairney. Thank you for listening and stay safe.
Archie